All right, well, this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys again. We got episode 67 coming at you tonight. Saddle up for some bloody wild tournament action. That's what I'm saying right now. So, Goldensaucerguy is coming back because he has to even up the score with Armies of Mordor, who happens to be in the channel, didn't win. He showed up early. Now we do early bird. You know, we gave away a pack 2, set 2 pack to Iraxor, whose in-game name is Archmancer. So congratulations to you, Iraxor. Thank you for showing up so early. I do appreciate that when you guys are in the channel. We are going to do some sort of a deck tonight that could be either one of two things. So give me your opinions on that before the end of the episode, what you want to see. But I'm thinking either there's somebody played an interesting Azure Fate deck against me yesterday, and if you are that person and you see this episode later, make sure to contact me and I'll get you something cool. Or on the flip side of that, I've been playing a mid-range Blood Wild deck that I would like to... I'll probably show it to you guys anyways, but, walk through the process and we can go through actually, building the deck. So that's pretty much that. Tonight, also, we're going to be talking about all of the Hex news that's going on. We're going to talk about some of the Gen Con things and the drafts that sold out within, less than a minute today that I actually only got one of. And we're going to talk about Armies of Myth. It's going to have a server that's going to be up, like a test server before Gen Con, which is kind of surprising. It's kind of interesting. So that's pretty much going to be the show tonight. Goldensaucerguy, are you excited to be back here, evening up your score? I'm not sure what the score is actually between. I think Armies has done so many episodes though. He's got to be ahead.
I don't even know.
Up to do.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch every episode and see who the host is, and then we'll have a running tally.
I think it says you don't have to watch the episode necessarily. You just watch the first minute or so, and you'll know.
Right.
Yeah,
whatever it takes for me to get ahead. Me and Armies will.
Yeah,
fight it out. You know what? I'll start giving up every Friday. My wife won't care at all. No big deal.
Whew. All right, so I know a lot of people are going to be doing this tournament tomorrow. I don't know if there's anything else you want to really hit on before we go into the news. I think we're ready for the news. I mean, is there anything you wanted to bring up, or
no?
Episode, anything anyone else wanted to? I think we're ready. Let's head over to the news. So here we go with our news update. There it is. There we go. So, A Bard's Tale is a game that I have honestly not really played. It's on my Steam games. I have so many games to play. I just actually started playing Final Fantasy 13, and also I tried in a vain effort to try to stream Witcher 3 last weekend, and that didn't go so well. My computer did not like that at all. I made it about an hour in to that. But Goldensaucerguy, you've had some experience with this game, right?
Yeah, I grew up a little bit on Bard's Tale 2 and 3. 3 particularly. That I like anything In Exile does, but it was kind of an old school D&D. Here's my party. The layout of the screen kind of looks like a character sheet, and you kind of roam through towns and villages. It spawned a lot of copycats, but it was a good game still, especially for its time. I think the third one had Carrie Elwes voice acting in it that was pretty neat. The graphics for the game have never been amazing, but it's kind of cool to see what Brian Fargo and his team in Exile has been doing to kind of up the graphics and make everything kind of awesome. So everybody should pre-order it. Right now, I think the pre-order level's $25.
$20.
Well, the $20 level's all gone.
It's all gone.
Yeah, I was a little bit annoyed at that. The next up is $25 for not really a whole lot more, and then $27 and $30 for even less more. If that's a thing.
Or if you're like me and you just are inundated with games, you could just wait for it to go on a Steam sale later too. So
that's what I did.
Option.
That's what I did for Wasteland 2. I'll be picking that up for $20 and playing the shit out of that. So
yeah. But I'm sure it'll be a great game. I guess that they have some history between Hex LLC, the people that work there, and the people that made the Bard games, and so they're just supporting them. But they also made a vanity card. I guess he might have been one of the Kickstarter backers or something. So here's his vanity card. It's pretty awesome. I like it a lot. I'd love to just play maybe 2 of these in a deck. That plays a lot of uniques, just a ton of uniques. Just go crazy on uniques.
No, there's definitely some real main deck potential for this card. I'm not saying it's game breaking, but it's really neat. So very minimum, I'm going to Kickstart it just to get a playset of Exiled Bard Alt Arts, because why not?
If you Kickstart it, you get one of these, right?
Yeah, you get
a playset of them.
Yeah, you get a playset of the alt arts. So,
Oh wow! So you get this one, the one with the
right,
hotness on the right there. Although,
right,
she kind of, I'm not sure if
right.
I'm into that face. I like
You
the
know,
beer. I like this girl. I
no
want to see
complaints.
her face.
No complaints. No complaints at all. At this point, I've been married for 5 years. At this point,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
take
sure,
what you can get.
sure.
Or maybe the woman is actually Brian's face and the guy isn't.
You never know. You never know. Whew.
Also, yeah,
And you get the sleeves. Yeah, for
as a
back in the
reminder,
game.
yeah, the sleeves actually are really what I want more of. And I think even though the alt arts all have a lot of value, I think the sleeves have a higher value.
This girl in the back. Why isn't she on the card?
Well, because it's better as a mystery. I have to have those sleeves. That's definitely Brian on the right. That's creepy.
Whew. Anyways, Exalted Bard, for the people that may just be listening to this, is a 1 cost, and there's no shard thing value in it, but it's not like an artifact troop or anything. It's just a troop. So you can put it in any deck. It's a 1 cost 1/1 troop, and it says when another unique card enters play under your control, add an epic counter to Exiled Bard. Unique troops you control have +1/+1 for each epic counter on Exiled Bard. So basically, as long as you play this guy first, he kind of like builds up power throughout the game, and he also buffs all of the rest of your unique troops permanently, which is pretty awesome. Unless there's like a Fill Cape in play or something.
Right. I like this card a lot. If I wanted to pull some things that aren't that great about it, well, it's a 1/1. All right, that's mediocre, but it's unique. So you run a playset of them in a deck that's not advisable. However, running just 2 of these in a deck,
maybe
imagine that. Maybe 3. Right. How much of a huge first turn is that? You're like turn 1 Exile Bard, turn 2 Victoria, turn 3 Lord Alexander. Was it turn 4 Lord Alexander? Turn 3.
Yeah, you could Lord Alexander on turn 3, sure.
Right. So you're looking at You're looking at some decent stats, some quality characters, and then on top of that, you're rolling out with a speed for retreat past that. This card is playable and is pretty quality, so it's got my thumbs up. So I need to play a set of alt arts.
Kind of reminds me of like going back to my Star Wars days when you had like you'd play decks where it was like Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie. Like they called it the mains and the toys is what they used to call it. So it's just a bunch of unique type characters. You really only could have one on the board at a time, but they were just so powerful they were overwhelming.
Right.
So, and they had a bunch of equipment that was like just for them. Like Luke's lightsaber was just for Luke and that sort of thing. Kind of reminds me of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Moving on. So there's going to be this tiny little thing in here is kind of important. On June 12th, there's going to be an Armies of Myth test server next week on that day, I guess, all week starting on June 12th, which would be, or actually it would start today then. So today. So you can basically register with the test server and try that out. I guess it's on the old test server because they didn't give me a link.
Right.
So I guess you just use the old test server and then just go with that. So, yeah, pretty cool that's a thing. And I'm going to have to try it out. I wonder if they're going to have like free drafts on there so you can test it. Especially important for people like me that are going to Gen Con. They're going to be playing the drafts in there, and it gives you more like maybe an idea of what the drafts will be like on that test server. So, yeah. Anything to add to that?
No, it sounds cool. I love having time to test out a set before I get a hold of it. We got that privilege when we were in the beta and the alpha. I'm really cool about it. I'm happy.
I think it's a good step forward that they're able to this time last year, like they were like, well, set 2 will come out at this time, and they're like, oh, big problems, and then it was like, oh, set 2 will come out at this time, and it's like, oh no, big problems, and then we're like, okay, well, we'll have some stuff at Gen Con, and then when we were at Gen Con, I overhear them saying, oh, it's going to be at least 3 weeks, and then there was like 2 months later. So they're getting a lot better at developing cards and putting them out, and the pipeline's getting better. If they're allowing us to play set 3 now,
right.
Things are that just tells me that they're getting used to producing this game, much faster, much better, which is just better for everyone, so we can have regular timelines when we're talking about the sets and stuff is being released and all that stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. The other cool thing is I like this as a marketing tactic. I think they should do this for every set where you have about a week or two where you
Right.
can play the set for free before jumping in and starting to buy all these packs. And I know you don't need to sell your hardcore fans, but talk about like these new people that are on the edge. They get their hands in there, they get to play some of these cards. Now they're sold, and now they're spending money. So I think as a marketing tactic,
Sure.
this should always happen. There should be an arena mode where you just get to play with cards, check them out. So I'm all for it. It has to be a very brief window, or else
The only
you know,
thing that's disappointing for me is it was kind of exciting last year when I had all the cards and I was on my lunch hour and I was like tweeting them out, and then they got retweeted all over the place, and people were apparently stopping streams when I was tweeting out cards. Now everyone. I think most of set 3 has been released at this point in time. I mean, it is a core set, but so it probably has like 300 cards, but most of it's probably been released.
Yeah.
Moving on to Twitch Plays Hex. So apparently, here's a tool that I need to get. I need to actually get on board and try this out. It's a community API that you can use with Twitch that allows players to vote on your cards, so that way that they can help you, or they can choose what you're going to draft. So whatever they choose is what you actually draft, kind of thing. And so you can kind of use your viewers as you win together, lose together, kind of thing. So it sounds like a great idea. I haven't jumped on board, and I need to. So if you're a streamer, try it out. Let me know what you think about it, and how easy or hard it is to set up. I'm gonna maybe try to get this done, but we do have a tournament tomorrow, which we're gonna talk about in a couple minutes. And yeah, hopefully, maybe this Sunday I'll get something set up with this, but maybe it might take some time.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else to add on to that? Do you think?
No, I've seen people using the add-on. It was kind of neat for what I've seen of it. So check it out.
So you've tried it?
I've seen people using it. It's neat.
Oh, okay.
It adds another level of involvement that you get to have in chat, and that's cool.
So last week we quickly went over like 20 champions, which was crazy. It ran us over and into our deck building time. But one more champion they were releasing is one that you probably won't have open to you unless you're playing Holy Ascension. The card is a 4-cost 1 diamond threshold constant. It says at the start of your turn, if your health is at least twice your starting health, void this. You transform it into Paragon of the Righteous. Paragon of the Righteous, it changes your champion. So similar to some things that happen in Hearthstone with, I guess, the, what's it called? With the Warlock, right? You can do this. And then Ragnaros also does this for anybody in that game. But it says Paragon of the Righteous is a basic 1 charge. Create an angel and put this into play. Cards you control have invincible, so it's basically like if you get this in play, you should win the game at that point. But honestly, getting to 40 life seems like it might be a little bit too hard to make this work. I mean, most of the time this is probably going to be a dead card. I would try it more in PvE than I would PvP. I don't see this being very PvP viable right now.
No, I agree.
The only thing that would make it worse would be what they did with the with my vanity card. If it said something like, "If you're at 10 health, sacrifice this constant," or something crazy.
Right.
That would be the only thing that could make it possibly worse.
Yeah, you're right. This isn't going to see competitive play. It is nifty, but not competitive.
Yeah. All right, so moving on, we've got the Blood Cup tournament. If you haven't signed up, I believe you still have time to sign up. It's free. It's free to the community. It is constructed. You do have to submit your deck tomorrow or by tomorrow. If you win, there's some random door prizes for those Buccaneer sleeves, which were only in a certain part of the world. We apparently got a hold of some of those. We also have some in-game store vouchers for the what is it called? The Five Shards store, where we sell singles and that sort of thing, and some packs and gold and other stuff.
Right.
Selling some packs as well. And then if you do win the whole thing, you get 36 set 2 packs and 20 set 1 packs. I mean, that's almost 2 boxes of cards, virtual boxes of cards. So here's here's what it actually looks like on Battlefy. Battlefy apparently does a little bit better job with like tiebreakers and other stuff. Some things we were having trouble with Challenge on, so there's that. I did see a silly post about it where someone was like, "Well, if I just concede all my matches, am I still eligible for the door prizes?" And someone was trying to be nice about it, but then Zubrin just came down and was like, "No." He's like, "Well, I know that I can't be there for the whole 8-round tournament for sure," and it's kind of like, well, then, yeah, that's kind of a waste of everyone's time, but.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta play. You gotta be there. Play the cards. Play the deck. It's there. It's a community event. Don't try to cheat people out of getting these things. I mean, I'm gonna be there as long as possible tomorrow. I really want those sleeves. I don't even know if I care about winning the event. I just really want those sleeves.
So tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, I'm Central, so it's like 10 a.m. my time, and it'll be like 11 a.m. Central Time, or East Coast Time, I believe, and of course that makes it 9 o'clock. That's when your deck lists are due, and then an hour later, the Swiss tournament begins, apparently, and then your top 8 will be the following day. So I still feel like I wish we would do top 16 for something that's this big. Like, when it's 100 players, I feel like top 16 makes more sense to me, but
right.
it's not my tournament to run. Maybe in the future there'll be a Squire series tournaments, but not just yet. Not that kind of time. Speaking of deck lists, if you're looking for a good deck list to win, why not look at the VIP Undefeated deck list? A lot of these are going to be very similar to what was played in the last Five Shards tournament to finish off the season. Seeing a lot of similar things as before. We're seeing like Gore Feast, Gore Knights, mostly I'm seeing in the Gore Feast realm, where people are playing like Lord Alexander, Legionnaire Egwene for like one-sided sweeps and stuff like that, because you've got your Mentalists, Mirror Knights, and stuff like that. I did see someone last night that decided to go into Diamond just so they could have, what's it called, Blessing of the Fallen in this same shell of a deck, where they just played a bunch of random Inspired troops, and it basically ran Gore Feast because it had Falconeer and other stuff. He just never got to it. That was kind of interesting, but I don't know if Tri-Shard really makes sense with this deck.
No, I did see someone use the deck list that the main deck was almost identical to what I went in with in the Invitational, which was kind of nice. It was awesome to see a version of what I was running in out there. It was literally like one card off. It was fantastic. So neat. Props to that guy.
Some of the other things you're going to have to definitely be ready for is there's going to be a ton of Reese the Crustcrawler. He was such like, I don't know, I think his low point was somewhere between $4 and $6, but he's definitely catapulted up to that, $20, $25 range just because he's so ridiculous when he comes into play. He is a little bit slow, so you can come in underneath him because a lot of times, they play him on turn 2, which means he'll come into play about turn 6. Somewhere in there, so if your opponent has come in underneath you and dealt enough damage to kill you before that time, then he's less relevant. But we're seeing a lot of other games with this. We're also seeing a lot of Azure Fate Sorceress combo decks, with, like Heroic Outlaw, stuff like this. I think there was a 5 Shards article on that as well. So, of course, I still haven't got very much feedback on which deck I should do tonight, so we'll see.
All right.
Of course, you've got your Blood Diamond control, typical Blood Diamond. This one's kind of interesting because it's running a singleton Tianost in it. That's kind of interesting, I guess. But, typical Extinction, Hope Heart Unicorn, Living Totems, and what do you call it? Soul Marble, that sort of thing. Well, this guy's only running 2 Soul Marble, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, I saw a lot of decks pulling Soul Marbles when they didn't need one, so I get it. I mean, you want to survive more. You want to get that Soul Marble going. I mean, I won.
Handful of Soul Marbles, kind of not the greatest, I mean,
yeah, with
like
4 up,
three Soul Marble in your opening hand. It's like, well, I guess I know what I'm doing for the first 4 turns.
Yeah, and typically what happened with those two is, your opponent kills you. So it's like,
yeah,
it's tough.
Well, you'll probably put it into play with like the 6/6, but by that time, if they can fly over you, they probably win.
Right.
This guy's the mono Sapphire and then the Diamond Sapphire decks are also kind of making a huge resurgence again, thanks to Reese the Crustcrawler. And then, of course, when you're running the Diamond version of it, you also run Angel of Dawn. This looks like mono Sapphire. Yeah. Or no, wait, this is Sapphire Wild. Yeah, because this is Havoc's deck. Havoc's deck is pretty interesting. Very little Wild is being played, which is kind of like, I think my heart is still, I want Wild to be a thing, And I like Havoc's deck, but at the same time, like, this one's really interesting. I think this is definitely like a sweet spot. He's interesting. It's kind of, he's running what's it called? Sight of the Sun. He's running 4 of these, which I think is a bit high because it's a unique troop, even though it is a very fragile body. But he has a lot of like Oracle Song, Zodiac Divination, more Archmage Renlock, stuff like that. So what he wants to do is have what's it called? Have that where was it? Sight of the Sun in play, and then play Zodiac Divination to draw cards. Then give him a bunch of resources back, so that way he can play the cards he just drew, which makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm sure this works pretty well. This seems very very tight type of a deck. So
no doubt.
Another one I would definitely look at playing.
Right. Yeah, I see the only holes in this one. It'd be early aggression, some deck that plays out those first 4 turns and gets a lot of bodies coming at you. Because you don't want to throw your Sight of the Suns to block early. So you're going to want those first 3 turns. If they get a lot of troops on board, you might be hurting.
This guy's running Canyon Scout, and the only thing I don't like is, like, Canyon Scout's great because you can surprise your opponent with them and block stuff, but the only thing that I wish his front end was 4. For a 4, I mean, I guess he's a 3/5. If they made him a 4/4 where I could at least trade with Reese the Crustcrawler in case my opponent, like, attacked with him, although you probably never would, that would be better because, like, it's like I see him in play and now I can respond to him. But I guess that's kind of interesting. There are a lot of things that, you know, it's nice to see underground. That's kind of interesting with this deck. But other than that, this is the typical Diamond Sapphire control type of deck that you see out there. Your 4 of Angel of Dawn, and then, you know, he's only running 3 Reese, but yeah.
I got killed by a deck earlier this week where the guy was playing lots of clouds and shards, and he was putting lots of flyers out, and he played that green Coyote that lets you draw cards every flyer. Was not expecting that to happen.
Yeah, that card is awesome too. I think that card also is pretty underplayed.
Yeah,
your typical really mono blood control. This one's kind of interesting because it's a lot of life gain in it, and he's also got like Surge Mechanism and going back to the old days of, you know, Pact of Pain to lose life, but I gain so much life from 4 life siphon it doesn't matter type of thing. You know, maybe you'll see this. I don't know. I don't see this still. I think this is just too slow for the format, honestly, to make it 8 rounds.
I agree. I mean, there's neat parts about it. You might be able to survive, pick some stuff out of their hand, life siphon your way to a longer game, but overall, I don't know.
Speaking of aggro, this is like the quintessential aggro deck now, as it just took the, you know, the Hex. It just, you know, basically won a ticket to Gen Con, and also won like 2 boxes of cards and like $500 or something like that. So yeah, this is like the quintessential deck to be playing. This one is pretty much the same as what we saw last season, where you've got, you know, your burns, your early aggression. He's running charge bots, which the other guy wasn't running, but construction foreman makes you big things. Although he's only running 3 instead of 4, which I think is maybe not completely right. 2 Hornet bots. The Tower Hulk's an interesting choice, I think. War Hulk is. This is another one where I think, playing 2 of these is probably right. Single Crackling Bolt, you know, it's running some pretty interesting things in here. There's a lot of 2s and 3s of things. Only 3 Gearsmith. I think maybe it would be better to play 4, at least 4 Gearsmith, 4 Foreman, 4 Electroid. I think it's kind of a big deal in this deck. But other than that, I mean, it's still a solid aggro deck. You know, you got your Tectonic Mega Hulk, your Time Ripples, Volcannon. He's running 2 Volcannon. That's kind of interesting too. I think I'd only run 1, but, you know, I guess if you're running aggro, he doesn't have a lot of card draw anyways.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's a neat deck. I mean, it's not something that I would probably play. It's not my style, but it's certainly nifty.
Let's see what else we've got down here. Mirror Knight. Yeah, more of the same. You know, this is your typical, what is this, Gore Feast? Yeah, this is basically Gore Feast type of deck. You know, we've seen this a lot before. Still need to be ready for Gore Feast. Here's some more Ambusher in this deck. This guy's also running Monsoon, which is pretty interesting as well, and Paladin of Necropolis. Not sure if I'm really on board with that in this specific deck. I have seen people use it as some good effect in other decks. Killipede's an interesting one. This is kind of more like an aggro blood deck. Blood Ruby deck, because he's running Jags and some other stuff. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think I think Ambusher is going to see a lot more play soon. I think that this is going to be like one of the new blood cards to play because it cancels out Inquisitor, and Inquisitor is still a big headache for the format if your opponent actually gets to 4 shards. But things are so fast with decks that are like the aggro deck that we just looked at with your typical whatever it is. Yeah, this one, your typical Bertram aggro deck. I mean, I'm not sure if it's good enough, but Ambusher's still pretty nice to deal with some things in that deck. Let's see, what else we got here? Yeah, this is another Azure Fate deck where they're doing some interesting things with your Heroic Outlaw and other stuff. Very similar, again, to what is going on with the typical... I always forget what it's called. The Gore Feast decks. It does some similar things. You know, it's got a lot of bouncing, a lot of tempo, but this one's more mid-range. It's got the Reese. It's got 3 Reese.
Yeah, I actually kind of dug that deck a little bit. I took some cues from it. The pieces that I like, some of the style, some of the play, and I played with it, trying to find something else I could do with it. But it's actually kind of neat.
Yeah, looks like it has a pretty good curve on it. I mean, I definitely like that one as well. Here's another your blood, typical blood deck. Terrible Transfer, Monsoon. I've been playing with Monsoon a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm really sold on Monsoon. He just seems so situational. I think the best part about him is just the fact that he has Rage 2. Like, that seems to be the best part. Like the tunneling 4 and like the whole tricksy hobbitses. It's like I'm gonna throw stuff underground and then throw this guy underground, and then everything I play after him is gonna get the counter on them, and then if you kill them, then they come back into play when he comes into play. It's like, okay, that's a couple things that need to line up there in order for that to happen. But
it's basically saying that Monsoon and Extinction have to be played together.
Yeah, I mean, there is that, but then on top, then that's a 3-card combo. Then it's like I have to play troops, I have to play Monsoon first, then I have to play troops, then I have to have Extinction to play Extinction. I mean, now you're asking a little bit of a lot of things to happen. I mean, optimally, most of the time what's going to happen is you're going to block something poorly. Your opponent will think it's poorly to save yourself some life, and then they'll come back when Monsoon comes back into play, which is, I guess, somewhat.
There's really no hiding. It's like, oh, you buried something? You're in blood? Well, you have one of 2 things that are going to happen.
It's either an Ambusher or Monsoon.
Right? So, there's no surprise. I mean, your opponent
should be less of a surprise.
Your opponent should be ready. It's not really a thing.
Well, I mean, they'll be ready. And sometimes there's nothing you can do to stop it, but yeah, they'll know somewhat. This is an interesting one. I really wanted Blood Sapphire to work. I was trying to make that work all week, and it just felt too slow to me. This is an interesting take on it, I think. Again, running Monsoon in this deck. Reese, of course. I was running 3 Reese. Rise again to get those troops back from the graveyard, put it into play under your control. Yeah, I mean, that seems pretty sick when you're playing Reese and Monsoon, that sort of thing. Only 2 Extinction in here, 4 counter magic. Mirror Knights seems pretty good in here, but yeah, kind of an interesting take on things. 3 Vampire King, 2 Inquisitor. Yeah, sure.
I did play something earlier today that was interesting. Someone played Monsoon in a different way. They played Monsoon with that 1-cost Shin Hair that sacks your own guys. So you're basically killing your own stuff. That was really cool. I thought he got that thing up and running in 2 turns and pulled everything back with Monsoon. It was really neat.
Here's kind of an interesting one. This is another one where it's your Ruby, or is this? No, this is just Gore Feast, isn't it? This is just Gore Feast. This is like a mid-rangey Gore Feast. This kind of shows you that you don't necessarily need rare cards to win. Like, he actually has 2 Wizard of Silver Talon. I'm pretty sure it's because he doesn't have 4 Royal Falconeers.
Yeah, it's basically like throw what rares you have together and
play Gore Feast and then Gore Feast.
Right.
He's got like Eldritch Dreamer. It feels like this is kind of mishmash Gore Feast, but it still works, right? Because it's got the baseline stuff. It's like Buccaneer, yes. Mirror Knight, yes. Gore Feast, yes.
Good to go.
Sure, why not? It's more mid-rangey, but it still works, right? More of the Azure Fate Sorcerer's type of deck. Another one. Here's more of a. I think I like this one a lot better. This is your aggro, your robots aggro. I think this one's a lot more focused. Again, we've talked a lot about the one of Hex Geode. I think that, or not Hex Geode. The other one is what I thought it was actually. what's the other one called? It's not. He's not running it. He's running Hex Geode instead of the other one, where you discard a robe or an artifact or a dude. I'd play a one of that. This is also an option, I guess, because you can take your construction foreman and turn it into a 3/3 robot. But yeah, I like this much better. It's just much more focused.
I like the curve on this deck. I'm much more into how he's managed to balance his curve out. I think some people don't do that very well. Some people focus so much on the early game that they ignore some of that early to mid. So I dig his curve out. I haven't had a chance to play with it, but just eyeballing it, I think it's pretty good.
Let's see. This one, more Monsoon, Mono Blood. Yeah, it's basically Mono Blood. He's running 4 Vortex. I guess that's kind of nice with Bunoshi. This is another one I think I'm going to run. The Bunoshi, the Ruthless, I believe, is the one where you can sacrifice a troop and give another troop +2/+2. So I'm actually tried that out today, and I actually kind of like it in my Wild Blood deck. Zared Venom Scorn here, yeah. Then more blood, Mono Blood control, Terrible Transfer, more Ambusher. Again, I think this guy's really going to see a lot of 3 of and 4 of play in Blood decks. Again, because he just deals with the Inquisitor really well.
Right.
What else we got? Zedu is starting to see some play now and then. I'm not sure how much good he actually does, but I'd like to try him out. You know, I believe it's a he. Always get confused on that stuff. More aggro robots. Aggro. More. This is Diamond Blood Control. Blood Diamond Control. So you can kind of see what people are running. I mean, either be ready for these things or be playing them tomorrow type of stuff. I mean, if you don't feel like you have a good matchup against these and you have a decent stock of rares, you should probably be playing one of these decks. Because a lot of them seem pretty solid. Like, this isn't like some of the first seasons where we saw some stuff start squeaking by and it was just like random things and we're winning, getting 4 ofs. And also, in those big 128 player 4 of, when you're getting 4 wins, you're not playing the whole tournament. You're not playing a full 8 rounds. So, again, some of these things do squeak by when you're only talking about 4 rounds. I mean, you can definitely have, there's a lot of players that are going to have 4-0 in those community tournaments. Here's what the Cup of Fate registration deck list thingy looks like. Make sure that you are submitting that for tomorrow. And I think we're ready for the deck list. Again, which deck do you guys want me to do? I could do a Blood Wild deck or an Azure Fate Sorceress deck, which, again, I will give credit to whoever it was I was playing against yesterday if they come out and tell me it was them. Wasn't my idea. This guy had some pretty good ideas with this Azure Fate deck that he was doing.
Yeah, so I've seen a couple versions of it rolling around, so it seems like it's seen some play lately. So sure.
Yeah, so I'll just give it a minute here. I just called this the episode 67 deck, so we're going to be definitely in Wild for sure. But it's either basically Wild Blood for my deck, or we're going to be in Ruby Sapphire Wild for the Azure Fate deck. So kind of just gauging the audience here for a minute. He's saying Blood Wild. All right, so here we go. Here's the Blood Wild deck. All right. So the basic idea behind the Blood Wild deck that I built was I wanted to play things with a lot of recursion. So this means that I could play Extinction and not have to worry about it as much. Typical ramp things, typical power stuff. So obviously we're going to run Wrathwood Mastermoss. I also have a single... I don't run Wrathwood Colossus because I don't have a ton of ramp in the deck. Speaking of ramp, we want Chlorophyllia. Definitely want 4 of those. And this just kind of comes down to like memorizing the cards too. When you're building decks like this quickly, you just kind of know what's already good, so you kind of play those things. I think I'm playing Inquisition on the reserves right now. And we'll talk about some things, if you guys have some ideas, go ahead and toss them my way, and I'll try to pay attention to chat. I know I've been pretty bad about that in the last couple episodes, but yeah, I'll try to do my best to make up for that. Vampire King. Now, the thing about Vampire King is I had 3 in the main deck, but I had to keep making room for other stuff, so I'm really unsure of exactly how many of these I really want to play in the main deck. Because I am running Extinction, I'm running a deck that's going to try to dodge Extinction. Bunoshi, the Ruthless. So again, we're going to run Bunoshi in here because we have a lot of double threshold stuff. I found that this was better than, what was it, the wild guy that gives all your dudes +1/+1.
Right.
I forget what his name is. I'll look at him in a minute. But he only needs three charges, and we only need 1 blood threshold to sacrifice troops. And we got a lot of troops that are very expendable in this deck to use. I'm trying to remember what the other one's called now. I'm going to have to look. It's Fitz something. Fitz. Or is it Fitz? Or is it, what's his name? I forget what his name is. Let's just go to Fuzzico. Yeah, Fuzzico. I found Fuzzico to be a little bit too hard because I have to run 4 Shards of Fate in this deck because it has double threshold wild and double threshold blood. A lot of the cards in the deck ended up being double threshold with what I have.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue I'm running into with the deck I'm looking at for tomorrow. With so many cards that run double threshold, I'm having a really tough time figuring out where to go with the deck.
So everyone knows I'm a big fan of Crash the Beast still. I still think it's great. And so now here's where it gets kind of interesting. I'm going to bring back a blast from the past right now. What's his name? Root Dancer.
Oh, there you go.
That's a blast from the past. So Root Dancer made a huge splash right at the beginning of Season 1 in the first set 1. And he was 1 threshold, and people played him like they splashed wild just so they could play this guy. And then they made him double threshold after we kind of came out of the alpha stages of set 1.
Right.
Things went live. But he's still pretty good. I just don't think that... I think that the way to play this guy is, you're going to play 3 or 2 of him. And in a deck like this where we're playing Chlorophyllia, that also helps because we can double buff things. And the biggest thing with him is I can Extinction and put his buffs on Inquisitors or Minions of Yazukan or even Wrathwood Master Moss and feel a little bit more secure with those buffs sticking on those troops. So we're going to play 2 of them in here. I found this to be pretty good.
Yeah, it definitely sounds decent.
Because he doesn't really, like, a lot of times if you're blocking with him, it's kind of like an emergency situation type of thing. Like, your opponent just cast, what is it called, Gore Feast or something. So you don't usually block with him. He ends up being a lot like Azure Fate Sorceress, where he's a buff, He's just a,
right.
A charge cheaper. So here's another surprising one you guys might look at and be like, does this really work? Because he doesn't block for us. Like, that's the biggest thing, and I was worried about that too. But after actually playing with him, it's nice to actually have a troop where I'm like, I might as well attack with this guy because if he dies, it doesn't matter. He'll just come back, type of thing. And eventually, he'll do some things to actually kill my opponent. If my opponent actually spends a ambusher on this guy, that's great because that's 1 less ambusher I have to worry about hitting my Inquisitors.
Right.
And I can sack this guy with my champion power. He gets stronger. I can throw buffs on him with my champion power if I need to, if I have 2 of them in play, and he gets stronger. It just seems like a great one. That's another reason to run Bunoshi, the Ruthless, in this deck, I think, is to run Minion of Yazukan. He seems like you really kind of want to sacrifice him because a lot of times your opponent's going to be like, 1 damage. I'd rather not this guy just get stronger, so I'll just take the 1 damage for a little while. If that gives me 19 turns, I'm good, right? But you still need to sacrifice him to something. So, But he actually works out pretty well, even though he doesn't block for us. So let's see, what else do we want? Also, I put in Constantina in here. Just a nice little 2-drop here. It's got the Steadfast. It's kind of nice against those Sapphire decks where they're exhausting your whole field, but it felt like, it's a unique. I'll just put 1 of in here.
No, I feel you. So where we at with this deck? Let's see.
Let's see, what else have I got in here, if I remember right. I'm just kind of remembering all the cards I had in here.
I kind of dig the idea of Root Dancer, popping that on a minion. Basically, it's like, well, you either take damage or they block, maybe it dies.
Yep. Yeah, you can throw the Root Dancer buff on a lot of troops in this deck, and it's pretty nice because it's hard for your opponent to have to deal with it. So here's an iffy choice for me right now, and I think I might have to pull this guy out. So I've got a Rootfather in here, and here's how I gemmed him. I basically made him wherever it is, Conservation, where he gives him Spell Shield, so he can't be targeted. And then I came over here and I gave him, Cruelty. When you deal damage to a champion, you put a target troop from your graveyard back into your hand, which seemed pretty good at the time, but I've got so many things that don't end up in my graveyard that it seems like it's kind of a waste. So it might be better to go with this guy with like something like Rhinos instead. Maybe a better direction to go with this guy. Let me know what you guys think, or even if I should just not play him at all.
You know I love Rhinos. Like, I love the Rhino gem. I am always for Rhino gem. That card advantage. Also, here, let me make another argument for the Rhino one. Card advantage, plus you have Root Dancer still floating out there. Yeah, it's turn 7. But now you get a Rhino out. It's just sitting there as a 3/3 Rhino. Oh, you drop a resource. Now it's a 5/5 Rhino. So, I love Rhinos. I think everybody should play Rhinos.
Yeah, there's 2 different ways you could go with that. I think the Spell Shield is really valuable in the format. In fact, I even considered throwing, this Battle Beetle on the reserves with the Spell Shield gem. Plus, you can always change the gems in between matches. If for some reason your opponent doesn't have a lot of point-and-click removal, that sort of thing, you could always change it to something else as well. But Spell Shield seems to be really important these days.
Yeah, I tested a deck with the Battle Beetle earlier this week, and I wasn't real happy with it. I think overall, I felt like if I could play a Battle Beetle, I could play a Rootfather, even though it's 1 higher.
Yeah.
You know, if I have that 1 or 2 in there, plus the Rootfather has that early game swap out. Yeah.
The only thing the Battle Beetle has is the flying. I mean, that's kind of nice.
Right.
Evasion, that sort of thing.
Right, but at this point, like the Rootfather, it's an 8/8. It's a huge body on board. You want them to try to deal with it, almost.
I might actually finish this deck like ahead of time, just because I built it already and I've been testing it this week. Another one that I'm not sure about in here is what is it called? The Sacrifice one. Yeah, this one, Necessary Sacrifice. I haven't actually played this card, but it seems like I have so many targets in the deck. This would be a really good way to card draw. Originally, the deck, I called it Relentless because it had Relentless Corruption. I had some like stuff that gained me health, and so of course I was playing Pact of Pain. But the way the deck is going now, I was like, I don't have enough life gaining to make Pact of Pain work. So something like Sacrifice seems much better for this deck because that seems to be what we're rotating around. So I don't know. This might be a better way to go.
I like Necessary Sacrifice as a one-of because I always hate drawing it. Like you're getting like a multiple of it and it's just sitting in your hand. It's worthless. You're not getting any troops. Yeah. I love that pop for card advantage. Similar with that Sapphire card that allows you to look at the top 3, get the top 3 cards and they -1 cost. I think that's also a great one-of. So
I've got Succulent Cluckodon in the reserves, and the biggest reason that he's in there is because he deals with a lot of stuff in that dwarf deck. Gains me some life in the dwarf aggro deck. I feel like this is the card to play if you're in wild against a dwarf aggro deck. I'm not sure if he's that great against Sapphire because they're probably not going to bounce him. They'll just like ignore him, but they'll just exhaust him or something and then just attack through him like Grolk or something. But against the dwarf deck, he's going to be amazing because he kills everything. Like all those 1-cost minions, kills them all. When he fights them.
Yeah, I think I want to see more people play Succulent Cluckodon. I think there's more opportunities to play than people think, and I think a 4/4 with 4 life, I've said it a million times before, is really neat. Yeah, it's not like top tier card or anything like that, but it's a good card. I don't care what anybody says.
Monsoon, again, we talked about this a little bit. I'm really unsure about this guy, and here's the biggest reason why. I've got so many things that don't end up in the graveyard, it feels like a waste to have this guy in the deck because, like, what am I recursioning back? Nothing, most of the time. I've tried him out. He is nice because he fits in the range a little bit better, but I almost feel like I want another Root Dancer instead. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm really unsure about this guy right now in this deck.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's so situational. I would run a one-of just because he has the potential to be a bomb.
Yeah, that's what he is right now. He's a one-of.
Right, even then sideboarding in 1 or 2 for those decks that do a lot of board sweeps or put cards in your hand, things where you're okay with the game going a little longer and you want to pull some stuff out from the graveyard that's been killed.
So here's another one that is just very situationally. It answers a lot of things in the format right now. Of course, your classic nature reigns, destroy target artifact or constant. Back a little while back in the last couple tournaments, I wasn't running this because I felt like there wasn't enough artifacts. But with the surge of these dwarf aggro decks, this became a lot more of a must for my wild decks. I feel like this is, a must 3 of in my wild deck, just because it deals with that, and as a bonus, it also deals with Soul Marble, which is a big deal.
Right.
Somewhat a big deal because I don't really target my opponent with a lot of things, anyways. But yeah, I mean this is kind of a big deal to deal with a lot of issues that come up in the Diamond Shard as well as in the Dwarf Aggro Robots deck.
Right.
Kind of went away from using Turbulence because I do have a decent amount of flyers, but that's another one that you could consider running in this deck. Also,
Turbulence. We haven't seen a deck a deck in the top right now that has, like, we know Vampire King's got the flying.
Vampire Kings and then Angel of Dawn.
And
and
Angel
that's
are
about
huge.
it.
Right,
I mean,
but those are the only two. So
things.
sideboarding it, sure, you're gonna run into those decks. You're gonna use them eventually, but man, there's 4 or 5 like decent decks out there that don't have any flyers at all. So.
So I decided against running Howling Brave, and this is another one where you're like, not sure if that's right, Aaron Squire, but so the choice was basically this guy or Minion of Yakuza, and I have to say that I really enjoy running Yakuza over this Howling Brave because most of my curve is in the 4-point range, and so with the Chlorophyllia, it's just about right. It gets me there, gives me 4 more virtual shards in the deck. I'm running 24 shards in this deck to begin with, and so the Howling Brave isn't as necessary. If I was running a lot more 6 drops and 7 drops and stuff like that, sure, I'll run more Howling Brave. But it's nice because I don't have to worry about running a troop that really doesn't do much. I understand I'm giving up turn 2 Crash Abyss. I'm giving up turn 2 Root Dancer and that sort of thing, but the trade-off I think is worth it.
Right. And the other thing too, I feel like mid to late game, this card is a dead draw. So, the Minion is not. So the Minion's great on 1, great in mid game, great late game if you don't mind having that card out there to get a blocker or get maybe some decent attacks out of it. So I support this decision 100%.
Shard. So we need to get our shards in the deck. So I may actually have. I'm not sure what I'm going to do we got about 12 minutes left. We can probably talk about the reserves a bit. So again, we talked about the shard base for the deck, and I very strongly feel that I need to have 4 Shards of Fate in this deck. This hasn't been a very popular pick right now because it just slows down your whole deck, doesn't give you any charges, that sort of thing. But a lot of stuff in this deck is dual threshold, and I didn't want to commit spells to fixing in this deck. But that was the big choice there that I made. Let's see. Where's the other? There it is. Wild Shards. The other thing that was kind of neat, the first time, I'm not sure where we're at right now, but the first time I did this deck, the shards, it was like 30 blood and like 30 wild shards is what it came out to. And it's close. See that? 29 blood icons shards and then 31 wild icons that are shards. The nice thing is I can split the difference and just run even amounts of both of them, because the wild will fix itself with Chlorophyllia. So that's the ramp that I get with wild. Let's see. Of course, the cat wants to jump up in my lap and be loved, and I don't want to give it any love.
Shut up, kitty. That's my chicken pot pie.
So if there's any ideas you guys have for this deck, or you think it's good, you think it's bad, let me know. Obviously, we may or may not find out tomorrow. I really kind of want to play this deck tomorrow, so this is likely going to be what I'll play tomorrow. I seem to like to put my deck out there and let people see what I'm going to play. I like it also because it's not this deck isn't seeing play at all right now. Blood, it's got the typical blood things in here. I feel like maybe I'm going to want that second Vampire King in the main deck, so I may have to make a choice to get him in there somehow. It'll probably be Monsoon. I'll probably pull Monsoon for the second Vampire King, but there's just so much recursion. I've got 12 troops in here that can easily be sacked if I really have to. Most of the time I won't want to sack Wrathwood Master Moss because that gives my opponent a turn to deal with them with like something that's basic action speed.
Right, right.
But for the most part, like I can sack an Inquisitor. Optimally, we want to be sacking as these minions of Yakuza, so this gives me a nice little it's like a resource. Sacrificing is, we've talked about this before, like a resource. So, I mean, yeah, just let me know what you guys think about the deck.
Irish Batista says, I would play tomorrow, but I'm working tomorrow night.
That's Irish Batista.
Yeah. Oh, man. Buddy, you got to play in these events. Come on.
So I think that is the choice, actually, we're going to make right now. Is unfortunately, the biggest issue with making this choice is that it gives me more cards in my 4-point range. And let's talk about that for a minute while we're looking at this. So getting rid of Monsoon is a 3-point card that's much easier to play because I can play this for 2. Much easier to play. He plays like a Wakizashi Ambusher. But I do have the ramp in the deck. I am playing 24 shards, so I should be able to draw at least 2 shards. If I draw 2 shards and a Chlorophyllia and one of them is wild, I'm pretty good to open up the game. But we've also got these ambushers which play for 2. So really, even though it says we have 19 cards in our 4-point range, we actually only have, if you count the ambushers like down here in the 2-point range, we've got 15 cards in our 4-point range, and we've got 9 cards in our 2-point range. So turns 1 and 2, or most likely 3 and 4, just because we have a lot of exhausted resources, look pretty good for us.
Yeah.
Any changes you would make, Goldensaucerguy, or anything you think?
Yeah,
does the curve bother you? It bothers me a little bit, but the things we're playing in there are kind of necessary,
Right. I mean, obviously, the things that should bother you is the threshold stuff is a little bit rough. I'm running into the exact same problem as a lot of cards I want to play. Like you're looking at Constantina, Root Dancer, Extinction, Vampire King, Necessary Sacrifice, all being 4 and under for requiring a double resource. Yeah, you have 8, 4, and 4 for your resource breakdown plus Chlorophyllia, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, we've got a playset of Chlorophyllia. Like our turn 2 is Constantina, Chlorophyllia, or Bury and Ambusher. That's our turn 2. But more likely than not, our turn 2 is going to be more like playing. If we played an exhausted resource, we'll play a Minion of Yakuza on turn 2 if we don't happen to be able to play him on turn 1. Which happens quite often because we only have 8 blood shards in here.
Right. So, yeah, again, I have some concerns about it because I think you're going to run into some times where it's not going to be terrible, but it's going to be a little mediocre where you have a lot of 1 shard and you're basically sitting on half a hand that you can't play. And you're hoping you can break the game wide open by getting that other shard. So I think you're probably going to run into maybe 1 in 5 games you're going to be begging for that shard you're not getting.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could see that happening. I could see a lot of issues coming up like that tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the Chlorophyllia helps quite a bit because you're going to have a way to get that double wild, and getting double wild is more important than getting double blood.
Yeah, because of our champion power. And again, that was another thing I found that going back to looking at the champions, I was playing the other champion when I was playing a lot more tokens, and I feel like that's the way he wants to be played, whereas this guy's got a lot more single target, and we're playing single target fatties, and I think that's a much better way to go. I mean, we can do things like we can buff Ambusher, and then maybe later in the game have Rootfather come into play, and then recursion him back to the field,
right,
and debuff things and kill stuff too. So, what do you think about Constantina? You think that's fine? I mean, what kind of changes would you make to the deck if you were building this deck?
I don't like Constantine in the main. I like it in the side because I don't know you're going to run into scenarios where the stats are great and the cost is great, but I would rather put something in there that has a single threshold, where you're not, because right now I think you're depending very highly on getting a perfect threshold, and it'd be nice to have one less card that doesn't rely on that has that one threshold or the other. Things that I would like in there maybe would be a low-cost Blood Troop or a low-cost Wild Troop with a single threshold, sitting at the 2-cost range with some mid-game value.
Right.
So I don't know what that would be. I'm looking right now.
Let's see. What can we get for 2? The thing is, if I go for 2, it doesn't show me things we can bury necessarily. I did consider running Drew's Unrelenting Fist, but I felt like this is going to put me in a lot of really bad situations, because the biggest thing is, one, you have to play this in such a way that you're able to use it the next turn, and as soon as you do, like, you put yourself down 3 resources for the rest of the game. So that could be okay if you're playing some sort of control deck or something as a one-of, but yeah, I just felt like in this deck I'm going to need all of the resources at the beginning of the game. Like, later on, not as much. So, I don't know. I considered that one as well.
Yeah, I'm digging through all the troops of that cost and trying to find something.
I mean, I could play Inquisition in here, but that's another double threshold one. I have those in the reserve for specific matchups. Like, any type of Azure Fate matchup or any type of Spell Shield matchup, Inquisition comes in. Or, you know, anything like, or even, what do you call it, Gore Feast. Inquisition comes in just to break up that combo.
I might like something like 4 Darkspires. You have to make room for them. Darkspire Priestess. Because you're wiping out. You have the ability to kill it and have some effectiveness if you wipe the board. With the Root Dancer, you could pump it up to a 4/3.
That's right.
They have to block it and lose a troop, and kill it and possibly do 3, or it gets through and does 4 damage, or even 2 damage is fine. Also, it thins your deck a little bit by you having a chance.
Right, it's virtual card draw, possibly.
Right, so it might thin your deck out, give you some early blocking. If your deck stalls out and you block with it and you get to draw another one, it keeps it alive a little longer. I think it's a little utility. It's not a beats deck. It's not gonna. You're not gonna win a game on the back of a Darkspire.
No, but it's nice because, especially like versus aggro decks, it's a nice little, like, you know, speed bump for those aggro decks, and you can trade it and you know, maybe get something else to help you stay in the game a little longer.
Exactly. So there's some things about it that are neat.
Could also try Grave Nibbler. That might be interesting, because a lot of times it will be a 4/4 for us. You know, the only issue I have is that it's so slow for what it is. If it was a tunneling 2, maybe it would have been more doable. Let's see, what else could we put in here? Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to fill a little bit of space here as we're looking at possible other options we could go with for this deck. I should probably go with just PvP cards, though. That would help. I did consider playing Chaos Key in here. That still might be one I'll throw in the reserves, just because it is an answer-all. But I feel like I have the correct answers to the right things right now that are much faster, given that I've got... right now I've got the 3 Nature Rains and the Inquisition. That feels like those are going to do the same job that Chaos Key does, and they do it much more efficiently and much faster. So I'll probably just stick with those and not run the Chaos Key. Let's see, what else could we run in here? We could run Survival of Fittest, but I mean, I guess that kind of works with what we're doing.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, so overall, like, what do you think about the deck so far?
I like it. I like playing it so far. I haven't had that much of an issue. The biggest issue is, like, you know, 1 shard hands. Like, obviously that happens from time to time, but that's gonna screw any deck that I've run into. I don't know. I haven't had a lot of big issues with it. Like, I ran it stock without, like, pumping it up with gear against the AI quite a bit, and I played against some players, but I haven't got to play against some of the tier 1 decks. And of course I played against that guy's Azure Fate deck last night. So his Azure Fate deck, so I'll just talk about this briefly before we close out the episode. The Azure Fate deck that I was talking about that we were going to do tonight was you run Azure Fate Sorceress. You throw the Spell Shield on her, so you're in Wild. It's basically it's a Wild Sapphire deck, and it dips into Ruby just so you can get a gem on Azure Fate Sorceress, as far as I could tell. He did say that he ran some Heat Waves in the reserves, but you know, that's fine. You can run 4 Heat Waves in the reserves, and you should be okay with the setup. Anyways, he's running, you know, the 4 Azure Fate. It was a little bit slow on the pickup, but he runs the Spell Shield on him, so anything she's going to buff is going to get Spell Shield, fine. So she's not going to be one you're going to want to block with, of course, as typical. And then she runs the direct damage on her, and he runs Wrathwood Master Moss. And if he happens to get that combo into play, there is nothing that I know of in the game that can deal with a spell-shielded Wrathwood Master Moss that comes into play and deals damage to you directly. If you sweep him out with Extinction, his 2/2 comes into play, deals damage to your opponent's face, and turns back into Wrathwood Master Moss.
Yeah, it's really neat.
That's just so disgusting. It was.
Yeah.
I was like, when it happened, like I swept him out and I didn't realize it was happening. Like I was like, okay, now he's gonna attack in, so I'll block and then Master Moss and okay, and then I can sweep him out. And I didn't realize it had turned back into Wrathwood Master Moss. And like I typed into chat, I was like, that's not supposed to happen that way. And then he's like, what? It looks fine to me. And I was like, oh,
right,
yeah. So it's pretty sick. Obviously, the issue is the threshold, but I don't think he's running any Ruby cards, so that's not too much of an issue with the deck. It does run a little bit slow, maybe for the aggro decks. He said he had some trouble with Sapphire, Mono Sapphire, and of course that's probably going to see a reasonable amount of field play. Probably about 20 to 30% of the field tomorrow will be some sort of X Sapphire deck where it'll be running Reese the Crust Crawler. It'll either be Mono Sapphire or Sapphire Diamond tomorrow, so I would expect to see that, but it is what it is type of thing. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it for the episode. Definitely stick around after the episode for the giveaways. We always give away a draft every week to you guys for showing up and hanging out with us. So thanks for being viewers. Oh, and one last thing. I did manage to get one draft today. When I took my lunch hour, brought my laptop to a place with no Wi-Fi. I thought it had Wi-Fi. I went to Pizza Hut, of all places. Wasn't allowed to plug in my laptop. And start up my laptop, tethered to my phone, and I refreshed the page like before the hour started, and refreshed it. And as soon as I refreshed it on the hour to go in to get my draft, they were all bought. All the drafts were bought, and I got one draft ticket for Saturday night at for Friday night at like 8 o'clock, and it's like a 4-hour tournament. I'm like, well, I guess that's fine. So that's the one I got. But I'm excited to, be playing a tournament. Last year I was lucky because Guare hooked me up with a ticket, as I missed out on that. This year I actually managed to get one myself. Last year the way they did it was some sort of a draft tournament where if you won any of the tournaments, you got put into finals on Sunday type of thing, and then you won something else. But you for winning the tournament, you got a poster, which you could buy. So hopefully they'll do it like that again this year, where it'll be like limited amount of posters and you can just buy them straight up. And I actually really hope that they open up the server so you guys can be drafting at home as well while we're at Gen Con and win the same prizes. I think that would be a great thing to be able to do. So hopefully set 3 will be ready for release like right at Gen Con or like right before or something, and everyone will be able to play and it'll be fun for everybody.
Right, yeah.
So tonight on Deck Build the Squire, we talked about the tournament tomorrow, so make sure you're making it out to that, supporting all the streamers and stuff. If you are going to be playing that, lots of good prizes, lots of great things, even for people that aren't doing so well. And we talked about the Bard's Tale special sleeves and the special, unique card that you can get by putting some money on Bard's Tale. We also went over the deck lists from the last major tournament, and we talked about what you either need to play or play against. And then we went over this new-ish type of deck where you basically are trying to sack a lot of things and pump a lot of troops up that are just really hard to kill. You got your Master Moss, Inquisitor, and whatever the other guy is, Minion of Yazukan. You got those 3 troops that you can buff. You throw the buffs on them. It's really hard to deal with them. And then hopefully you can get the damage through to finish the game out. And that was pretty much it for tonight. So, yeah. Until next time, this is Darren Squire signing off, saying God bless you and your families. Try not to rage too much out there.